You've probably heard, well, not even probably, you have heard, of the iconic phrase, "I told you so." You know, to say, I gave you advice beforehand, and turns out that I was completely correct. The bad thing I told you would happen did indeed happen.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
And maybe it even happened worse than even I predicted, due to your horrible, reckless behavior. Don't drive drunk. Well, actually, don't drive at all, man. You're gonna crash and die. Oh, looks like you crashed and died. Well, actually, I guess I don't really get to tell you. Well, I'll show up to your funeral. I won't drive to it. I'll show up to it. And I'll tell you I told you so. Don't have sex with her, man. Don't stick your dick in there. She's got AIDS, dude. Oh, you got AIDS? You mean your doctor said you've been diagnosed well, man? I told you so. You shouldn't have stuck it in. Like, at least do oral something, dude. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Fucking PI, penis, vagina, sick fuck. And I told you not to show your chips on the boggin, dude. You were playing with those slot machines, man. You're doing all this lottery jazz. I told you not to gamble. You lost all your money? Well, whose fault is that? I told you not to go into debt, man. Now you can't pay it off. Now you gotta sell your children as fucking sex slaves to goddamn pirates in Somalia. I told you, man. I told you it wouldn't end well. And here's the thing. Sometimes people will just be smug and self-righteous to the end. You tell them that something they're doing or have done or will do is terrible, that they shouldn't do it, that it shouldn't have been done or whatever, past tense, present tense, future tense. They still do it regardless, and they have no regret for it. No remorse for the other people that are harmed by their actions, or even the fact that they themselves are harmed by their own actions, despite the fact that they're a selfish bastard. Some people will never learn. No matter how much you boil the water, no matter how high stakes things are, no matter how much they lose or they cause other people to involuntarily lose. How much loss they've caused others. Some people just want to watch the world burn because they're assholes. And that's just how it is. It sucks, Dick, but what you gonna do about it, huh? You gonna do nothing about it. You're just gonna whine and crawl up and complain and be a little bitch about it. But here's the thing. While everyone loves to be, snarky, saying, oh, I told you so. That bad thing I said would happen, turns out it happened to be even worse than I could have ever imagined. While people like to do this, the truth is that sometimes it kind of wears down on you. A lot. Sometimes it just loses its impact. Because when you tell someone that something bad is going to happen, and, they do that very thing, and they get bad consequences, negative consequences as a result of their terrible behavior. You can tell them, I told you so, but that won't stop them from repeating the same action, despite their losses, hoping that next time things will be different, or at least hoping that they can continue what they're doing because they're already of the belief that whatever they're doing is somehow justified, moral, or okay in any possible shape or form, in any way. Telling them, I predicted the future, isn't going to stop that future from reoccurring. You see, here's the thing. The ultimate reality is that you can tell people that there are horrifying and disgusting consequences to their actions. To the things that governments do, that countries do. The actions that they take, the military, the imperialism, the everything. But they don't care because their moral values aren't your moral values. And you're sort of self-projecting a bit. You don't want them to do all the horrible things they're doing, obviously. Why would you want that? But simply saying, oh look, you created heaps of poverty. You created heaps of death. You created heaps of disease and destruction, quite literally. They don't care because that was their intention. What you consider bad, they consider good. What you consider unsuccessful, they consider successful. What you consider immoral, that's their very definition of morality. They live to hurt other people, to kill other people, to do horrible, heinous, and evil shit. You see, here's the thing, not everyone wants to have a debate, a discussion, a conversation, a back and forth about the ethics of something. Not because they don't care about the ethics of something, but because they do, and that's all they care about. They don't want to debate with someone who doesn't see things from the same ethical perspective. who is really just biased, who really just wants other people to suffer, who is immoral in their behavior, their conduct, and their mentality and projection of the world. You know, when the tragic murder of George Floyd occurred in Minneapolis, and there were, all those protests in Minneapolis, and then just sweeping across America, people rightfully outraged and, calling for, at the bare minimum, the police officers involved to be given, quite lengthy prison sentences that personally not lengthy enough, never can be lengthy enough. It's like, I didn't want to have a conversation with conservatives, or, white supremacists, basically, if not literally, who would justify this, or try and say that there shouldn't be as harsh consequences as there could possibly be for the officers, or that the people rioting and looting were even doing a bad thing. Who cares, dude? Your priorities are in the wrong place. And we know why, because you're a conservative, because you're a racist, because you're a loser. And not everyone wants to have, a lot of people, a lot of leftists, progressives, and just like non-racist people, like people who aren't lunatics, don't want to sit down and have a discussion with these people. They don't want to go on social media and see these posts by these scumfucks. They don't want to see any of that kind of stuff. I don't even want to see any of that kind of stuff. I didn't even want to watch YouTube videos on it. And that means I didn't even want to watch videos or read articles or essays by people calling out this bad behavior, police brutality, white supremacy, other evils, because I already knew this stuff was wrong. I didn't need to continue to justify to myself over and over again in my head, as a result of my OCD, despite the fact that I very much have it intensely, that this is bad, that I need to confirm to myself this is bad. I need to continue to reason with myself, explain it to myself over and over again in my head constantly, this is wrong, this is evil, this shouldn't be. Because I knew, the second I saw it, I knew, immediately, just clicked. Just empathy, basic, normal, human emotions. Not being a psychopath, not being a white supremacist, not being a creep. Everything that a conservative or any kind of right-winger is. Not being this foul, greasy goblin, wanting to be a normal person. Just looking at this injustice and saying, that's evil. That's evil, and the highest possible legal consequences should come to everyone involved in this. Anyone who did this evil, who did this injustice, this brutality, this infliction of pain and misery upon someone who wasn't even resisting arrest. And that's the thing with really all travesties. American travesties especially. With what the US is doing to Palestine, especially and specifically the Gaza Strip now, it's just, you don't have to sit down and think about it. Because even though thinking about things philosophically, and I do this constantly, of course, I think about things deeply. I do care about ideology. Why am I making this video if I didn't care about that kind of stuff? You don't actually need to think about that much to come to a correct conclusion, or any kind of sensible, meaningful, and empathetic, especially empathetic conclusion. This is just normal, rational thought. How a normal person perceives the world, how a normal person navigates the world, and all the struggles and problems that you will inevitably encounter, that other people encounter. This is called having empathy, or at least sympathy. It's called being not heartless, perhaps? just putting it out there, That's what I mean. You see, the thing is that in this debate, and that's debate with massive quotation marks around it, a debate that shouldn't be happening, that shouldn't be had, you have all these people, the Zionists, the racists on the pro-Israel side, right? The conservatives, and just general scumbags who are like, all these pro-Palestinian advocates and activists and protesters, so on, and they just haven't done their research. They haven't looked into this enough. Now that's ironic coming from them. I doubt they have looked into this conflict that much at all. It's really just racism motivating their every action. And I know it is, obviously, because they express racist opinions constantly. Their opinion on Israel and Palestine is itself racism. But what I'm trying to say, though, is that even if it were true, right, hypothetically, and I do really mean hypothetically, that, that those on the pro-Israel side really did their research, and people who support Palestine and just, aren't monsters, they don't look into it at all, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Like, not look into it? Like, you can look into it for academic purposes, or maybe you're writing a novel, or book, or, whatever, or an essay, a report, whatever, I don't care. Sure, if you need to talk about a specific thing, a certain element to the war, really the slaughter, the genocide, you can. That's fine, you should do that. But to say that, like, you need to do heaps of research to come to a conclusion on what is right, what is wrong, how you're supposed to fucking behave, how it's okay to behave in front of other people, to say certain things, to have certain opinions about military intervention, imperialism, and killing what is now, when you consider all the factors, all the different variables of the conflict, right, and the damage done to Palestine and the Palestinian people, hundreds of thousands of deaths, all that stuff, all that misery, all this fucking homelessness that you've created, people whose lives are being completely ruined. I mean, even more than Israel, than even before, like even more than what Israel was already doing, even more than what America was already helping it do, financially supporting it, backing it, supplying it, sending in their own fucking troops. It's like, well, you don't need to think that long, alright? I mean, you can think long and hard if you want, but you do that after you've already come to the conclusion. And you come to the conclusion, the first thing you understand to be the truth, right? Who is wrong, who is right in this conflict. You just look at like a few fucking images and that's it. Done. Spontaneous, motherfucker. Because thinking about this means you're a heartless bastard. Trying to see both sides. Trying to see both sides means you are someone without any degree of sympathy. You know, there's no research you need to do. And if you feel you need to do some research just because you just want to support Palestine and you're a racist, and you're a creep, and you shouldn't be allowed to vote, and etc. Anyway, or own property. Anyway, listen, my point is that, my fucking point is that all the time, we don't need these deep dives. We don't need this philosophy. All the time, sometimes, actually. People try to complicate things. They try to add stuff onto things. It's just called being a person. You know, not being evil. Looking at this and saying, man, this is evil. Wanting to gather around a table full of your friends, or your family, or talk to your spouse, or, you know, someone who's important to you, anyone. You shouldn't have to be worried, terrified that they don't believe in the same thing as you. If they're a moral person, why else are you talking with them? Why else are you ever hanging out with them? It's because that you would expect them to naturally believe in the same thing as you. Not in every single scenario, mind you. Obviously, there's going to be disagreement, and that's not quite okay, because truth is objective, obviously. But it's not the end of the world. I understand. But when someone's like, I think, you know, this military should bomb and kill so many people who did absolutely nothing wrong. You know, hundreds of thousands of dead when you contribute the pollution created, the starvation, the dehydration, those crushed under the rubble, those just outright murdered, just everyone. When you consider the sheer degree of the catastrophic death toll and the misery, there's no big thinking that needs to be done, dude. Alright? And there's not big thinking on the part of conservatives or anyone justifying this evil. Attempting to, anyway. There's no thinking. At all. You know, you think that's fault. That's not fault. It's just racism disguised as something deeper. You don't need a big history, a big fucking encyclopedia of the history of Palestine and, you know, how Palestine was formed and the indigenous Palestinian people and what happened, and you don't need to do that. There's nothing to do with, you don't need to do jack shit. You already knew immediately from the first few seconds of hearing this conflict what was happening of the sheer degree of evil. And the evil is just stacking up now. It's stacking up beyond belief. But here's the thing, right? You know that expression, I told you so. I told you something would happen. I told you things would go wrong. I told you things would not work out. I told you people would be hurt by your actions, by your behavior, your conduct, stuff you never needed to do. That saying is really sad now, because it should be a fun saying. Getting to gloat, getting to be gleeful, getting to mock someone. Oh, I told you so. That thing I told you would happen, it happened. But here's the thing, when you expect something bad to happen as a result of someone else's actions, a bunch of other people's actions, their horrible behavior, and it happens every day. It happens every moment of every day, every hour, every minute even. It stops being something worth gloating over. You can't be gleeful anymore. You can't be happy about it. You can't be, saying like, oh, I told you so, this bad stuff would happen. You can't even have a sense of humor about it anymore. Because it's happened too many times now that it's lost its humor. It's lost its voice, its charm. Now it's just sad and gross and disgusting with zero upsides, not even from a comedic, humorous perspective. Literally nothing that can even be said that would cheer anyone up in regards to this news. And it's not even really news because you expect it to happen. like clockwork, like a clock ticking. It just never stops. It just never even pauses. Unless you smash it, that is. Just as we could smash the state of Israel. And yeah, that might require a little bit more thought. Someone might not immediately come to the conclusion, we need to abolish Israel. Even though it wouldn't take you that long to do that. And yes, we should abolish it, obviously. But you're missing my point. My point is just the initial reaction that people have. Just the first impression of the conflict. If it's anything other than complete disgust and wanting to, understanding that these airstrikes were unjust and everything the Israeli military, the imperialists have been doing is evil, anything aside from that obvious, glaringly goddamn obvious truth, then they have some ulterior motive and they are a creepy person. Look, the reality of the situation is that you can tell conservatives, or you can tell Republicans, you can tell centrists even, those are really just right-wingers, but whatever. You can tell anyone anything, that Israel is going to start another war. And yeah, it did. It started a war with Iran. It started another set of conflicts. It started it. It was the first to assassinate Iran's people. It was the first to bomb it, to spread pollution its way, to attack it, to kill its civilians, to do that. All this evil shit, mind you. You could be like, I told you so. Israel's not going to stop at Palestine, even though Palestine doing what it does there is still way too much. It's still evil. You can be like, I told you so. This is what happens with your supporting of Trump and the whole Trump administration and the Republican government and just the current state America's in because of the way you behave, because of you voting for this piece of shit, for you doing all that kind of stuff. But gloating about it isn't going to help, because there are two camps of people who either support this or have supported this. One are people who don't care because this evil, what Israel is doing to Iran and to Palestine, they support it. How can you say, I told you so, when this is what they hoped would happen? And two, the other people who regret it, maybe even regret voting for Trump, alright, regret supporting any neo-Nazi politician altogether, but ultimately, they don't really feel remorse. Because you can say, I told you so, but this stuff is happening every day. Every day, you're living the reality, the sad reality where you're proven right. You are proven to be correct about everything. And that's the saddest, harshest, and darkest thing ever. The worst possible timeline out of any goddamn dimension in the fucking multiverse. Knowing that you are correct. You predicted they would kill countless innocent people. You predicted that this dude would not keep his promise, that Trump would lie, make all these promises about doing this and that. Some good, some bad, but he would lie regardless, even to the scumbags who supported him. Or even worse, do still continually support him, somehow. I swear to God, gasoline is leaking to these people's brains. This is what happens when you're in such a car-obsessed culture. He will do this shit, okay? Or not do this shit. He will do evil shit and never do any of the good shit he promised that people ate up, actually believed it. You can say, I told you so, I told you Trump wasn't going to do this, or I told you Trump was going to do this, you thought he didn't. You could say that again and again, but now it's not funny anymore. Because it's happened too many times. It's lost its humor. And now it's just sad. Unbelievable, overwhelming levels of sadness.
And it's being reminded of all this, not that I could ever possibly forget, recognizing all this, holding this stuff, all this information in my mind, that I confront the fact continually of just how sad life can be. Just goes to show truly how sad life can be. Just goes to show truly how sad life can be.
Fuck Israel, we'll slide on them again. Fuck Israel and all they fucking friends. Fuck Israel, today I got the time. Fuck Israel, free Palestine, nigga!